Hi, I'm Meredith. Welcome to Chill Book Reviews. Today I'm going to be talking about writer A. Milne. If you're familiar with Milne, it's probably because of this book, Winnie the Pooh. The Winnie the Pooh stories made Milne an international sensation, but he was actually already a very famous author before the Winnie the Pooh stories ever came on the scene. He was an essayist and a playwright and a screenwriter and a novelist, and a lot of his earlier work was eclipsed by the success of the Winnie the Pooh stories and forgotten. A lot of it is out of print, and I recently dug more into Milne's canon and discovered a lot of gems, and I'd love to share with you what I found out about Milne, both about Winnie the Pooh and about his earlier works. I'll begin with what you are probably the most familiar with, which is Winnie the Pooh. These are stories that Milne wrote for his young son, Christopher Robin. There were 2 volumes. There was Winnie the Pooh and A House at Pooh Corner. The illustrations are by Ernest H. Shepard, and the illustrations are also quite famous and classic. Probably like a lot of people my age, my first exposure to Winnie the Pooh was through the Disney animated Winnie the Pooh cartoon, which is sweet, and I like it in its own way, and in parts is quite true to the book. But what I discovered, I didn't read the book until I was an adult, and what I discovered gets lost in the movie is just the wit of Milne and his love of language. And if you're someone who loves language, I think you'll love reading the original stories and what kind of fun he has with sounds and words. I have 2 editions. I have this one that I showed you, which has the black and white Shepard illustrations, and then I also have this collector's edition from Barnes & Noble, and this has both the Winnie the Pooh stories and the House at Pooh Corner stories. And these illustrations are the Shepard ones, but they're in color. And they're really lovely. It's a beautiful book. There is also an full cast audio play of Winnie the Pooh that has Stephen Fry as Winnie the Pooh, and it's hilarious, so it's available on Audible if you want to try that out. My kids and I have listened to that dozens of times, and I really like the character that Fry brings to Winnie the Pooh, and that's always sort of Winnie the Pooh's voice to me now, and is a stark contrast to the Disney Winnie the Pooh voice. Milne also wrote 2 volumes of poetry that were inspired by Christopher Robin and for Christopher Robin. They are When We Were Very Young. I have this one here. And the other is Now We Are 6. I have that one as an audiobook. And they're very sweet, fun little books of poetry. Sometimes I feel like poetry like that is written, it's almost more for the adult remembering childhood than it is for the child. There are things about it I think I get that my kids don't get out of it, but there are probably things they get out of it that I don't get out of it. But they're very sweet little books, and if you like poetry at all, I think you'll enjoy them. Another book I looked at while researching Milne was this one, The Natural World of Winnie the Pooh, exploring the real landscapes of the 100-Acre Wood by Catherine Alto. I'm not sure if you're aware, I wasn't aware that the 100-Acre Wood is a real place. It's Ashdown Forest and right outside the Milne family home, and that the places in the Winnie the Pooh stories like Rue's Sandy Pit and Pooh's Bridge and the Enchanted Place are all real places, and it's open to tourists. You can go there and visit them, and I think it just brought it alive to me in a new way, and it was interesting to imagine the ecology and the real place that inspired the Pooh Bear stories. I have this collection of essays once a week. My favorite so far is this one, Year In, Year Out, which is a collection of his essays. And you get a sense of Milne's humor in Winnie the Pooh, but it really comes through in his essays. And there were many times reading these that I was laughing out loud. And my son kept being like, "Why are you laughing? What's funny?" And I was like, I can't explain it. One of my favorite pieces from here is just an absolutely scathing and hilarious rebuttal to the Baconian theory of Shakespeare not being the original author of Shakespeare's plays, of Bacon, Francis Bacon being the author. And you wouldn't think that you could make that subject so funny, but he just absolutely scorches them. And I think he was well known for doing that. And it's a really fun collection of essays, if you can find a copy. Another of his books that I read, this one, a novel, The Red House Mystery, which is Milne's only mystery that he wrote. And one of my favorite parts of it is the dedication at the beginning. It's dedicated to his father, and he says, "To John Vine Milne, my dear father, like all really nice people, you have a weakness for detective stories, and feel that there are not enough of them. So after all that you have done for me, the least that I can do for you is to write one. Here it is, with more gratitude and affection than I can well put down here, A.A.M." Which is just so sweet. And it's a funny little book. It is a murder mystery, but it's also funny at the same time. It almost reads like a parody of a murder mystery, because you have the locked room and the manor house, and it's all sort of these stereotypical mystery elements, but with Milne's humor somehow infused through all of it. And the main detective is really likable and plays at being Sherlock, and his friend being Watson, and they make lots of jokes on that account. And you really get the sense of Milne as a playwright in it, because I feel like almost everything that happens in the book happens through dialogue. I mean, lots of pages are just dialogue, back and forth, back and forth. So you can really see the playwright in Milne. And I actually haven't read any of his poems or any of his plays yet, but it's something I would like to try to, because he certainly does a good job with it, turning dialogue into a novel. And last of all, I have Milne's autobiography. And I haven't read all of it yet, but I have been more interested in biography and autobiography since I became a parent. It always interests me what people feel like shapes them, and how their childhood affects their development as a person. And Milne spends a lot of, like, almost the first half of the biography talking about his childhood. And so you get to really get a good sense of what his childhood was like. And he's one of the few autobiographers that I've read that is just so glowing about his parents, and he has such a special relationship with his brother, and a deep relationship with the outdoors. And I found that all sort of inspiring, I think, especially in Milne's case, because Milne is a veteran of both the First World War and the Second World War. He was at the Battle of the Somme. And when you see somebody who has been through so much darkness and then come through and be a person of light, of kindness, of this spirit of happiness that infuses something like Winnie the Pooh and the childhood he tried to create for Christopher Robin, it has a great deal of character, I think, and it's sort of rare, and it's curious to me what the elements are that form a person that way, that they're capable of overcoming that kind of darkness to grow into a person. I feel like that Milne was. So if you're curious about what makes that kind of person too, I can recommend his autobiography to you. I haven't finished this yet. This one is in print. I think it has a new name on that is being released under a new title. I'll look that up for you. Okay, the new title is It's Too Late Now, an autobiography of A.A. Milne. Well, that's it for today. Thank you for watching Chill Book Reviews. I hope you learned a bit about Milne. If you're interested in purchasing any of the books I talked about today, I've put links to all the books in the show notes below. If you want to see more of my book reviews and keep up with what my kids and I are reading, be sure to click subscribe below. And if you do, I will see you back here next week with more books. Thanks.